Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I want to start by just repeating 5 words, just 5. There is no hidden agenda. This is what we have been told by one of the members opposite. And if there is no hidden agenda, why don't we tell St. Lucians how these monies will be spent? Madam President, I think my colleague on this side has done an excellent job in terms of raising some concerns regarding the way in which this borrowing is going to take place and how the monies will be spent. Madam President, we know that sports offer our young people more than just a physical activity. We know that the various sporting disciplines that our young people participate in equip them with a range of soft skills, Madam President, including teamwork, resilience, discipline, and leadership. And we know too well that all of these soft skills will serve them well throughout their lives. Madam President, I want to echo the position of the opposition, and my colleague has articulated that we support, and I repeat, we support any intervention that aims to assist our young people and their sporting abilities. My colleague mentioned some of the facilities that were put in place under a UWP administration. Top-notch facilities. And all of these top-notch facilities, as well as the injection of funds to advance our young people, their development, their skills. All of these, Madam President, clearly demonstrate the unwavering support. All of these demonstrate how we, as a political party, how we, on this side of the House, believe in our young people and will provide any kind of support to them. Because we believe that these are the young people who will be holding the mantle. These are the future leaders of this country, and there is always need to support them in whatever they do. Madam President, we are aware of the transformative power of sports in uniting communities. We believe that sports has the power to bridge divides and to foster a sense of belonging and teamwork among our young people. Madam President, the member opposite has identified a range of programs that the National Lotteries Authority finance. We have no qualms with that, Madam President. But we cannot ignore the critical issue of accountability that we are presenting today. And this is what we question. Madam President, there are many who are watching us. There are many who are listening. And in the very same way, many of our St. Lucians, many of our young people still need to find out still need to know, still wants to know how this 80 million will be spent. In the absence of information, in the absence of specifics, in the absence of a clear, well-detailed program, we are left to speculate, Madam President. So here we see the Minister of Finance seeking approval to borrow 80 million from First National Bank to the National Lotteries Authority. To guarantee, yes, thank you for the correction, to guarantee this borrowing. And this is, as my colleague has mentioned, a statutory body with its own board. And what we see or what we fail to see in this piece of legislation are the basic guidelines. The basic guidelines that would give us a lot more insight into how the monies will be spent. So is it a case of bypassing those processes and those mechanisms that must be put in place? Where are the conditions set by the board? Madam President, we are told that the board will be the ones to manage the funds. If the board is the one to manage the funds, who implements the program? Who implements those programs? We need a breakdown. We need a breakdown of the works to be undertaken. We need to see the plans, and we need to know exactly. And as my colleague has mentioned, there is no need for me to go through all of it, but he has already indicated that there is need for us to get an indication as to how those monies, 80 million, will be spent. And who's going to provide oversight? Who is going to provide the oversight that is needed to ensure the checks and balances? So simply telling us, Madam President, that the monies will be used or the monies will be spent to upgrade some facilities, that is not enough. This is not enough. We want to know how the monies will be spent. You know what, Madam President? I really wonder whether this was an oversight on the part of the Minister of Finance, or was it a deliberate attempt to prove to St. Lucians that they have total autonomy to do things when they want, how they want, without question, without accountability. Madam President, question nous voulons demander. Nous voulons demander si ça c'est peut-être un petit faux pas. Un petit faux pas. Eh bien, si ça c'est un bagay qui le gouvernement fait parce qu'il voulait prouver, il voulait faire cette lycée savent, c'est yo qui en charge et que ça fait ça yo voulait, là yo vie et personne ne va s'en demander question. Mais vous savez qui ça? Madame Président, où est les yon politicien qui a dépensé l'argent et que l'argent qui a sorti en poche li, il n'est pas obligé de dire personne qui a dépensé l'argent. il pas obligé de pièce, ça c'est l'argent qui a sorti en poche. Mais depuis, l'argent c'est l'argent peuple Saint Lucia. Depuis l'argent c'est l'argent gouvernement. C'est l'argent peuple Saint Lucia. Toutes ces taxpayers là. Madame President, yo ni pour faire Saint Lucia savent qui monnaie l'argent c'est la because the money belongs to the people, the taxpayers of this country. Madam President, what is a fact will always remain a fact.
For what? Still waiting for us.
Madam President, we must not turn a blind eye to the questions that still linger in our minds regarding the whereabouts of past NLA funds allocated for similar purposes. We must not forget this. Let us not forget the blatant abuse of office and mismanagement of NLA funds in 2012. In 2012, when the former Minister of Sports gave directives to the board of the National Lotteries Authority to have an account. Of which 1/3 of the earnings had to be deposited to this minister's account.
Senator Polius. Senator Polius, I want to caution you where you're trading. If you have any evidence that you have to present, to be very careful how you trade.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I am glad to provide you with some evidence, right?
Stand firm. Stand firm when the facts are on your side.
Madam President, perhaps I can send past this to you. We can make it a document of the House. I can probably give it to you afterwards.
Share with the public the facts.
Madam President, in a letter to the then chairman of the board,
That's right.
dated 29th May 2012, the Minister of Youth and Sports at the time, Honorable Sean Edward, put forward a formula to be applied with regards to the allocation of NLA funds, of which 1/3 of the monthly earnings had to be allocated to him to meet various financial requests. Further to that, Madam President, St. Lucians, listen. Further to that, Madam President, and I can provide you with this right here. At a meeting held on October 5th with the Minister of Sports, as per the minutes of the board, the minister indicated that he was unable to depend solely on the 1/3 allocation and requested that the board provide a minimum of 200,000 to his account, which was the minister's account. You want evidence? There is the evidence.
Madam President, on a point of order.
Yes, I think. Proceed, Senator.
The member is misleading the House grossly, Madam President. You have the documents before you, and I am sure that her reference to his account suggests an account in his personal name, which is absolutely erroneous, misleading, and dangerous. And I ask, Madam President, that she withdraws that statement. Yes, as a former PS, Madam President, I am asking that Senator Phera Polius withdraws the statement which refers to the minister's account as if it was in the name in his personal capacity.
Senator Polius, I have to agree with Senator Jean. You did indicate that he asked for the deposit to be made to his account. Please withdraw and please correct. It should be to the minister's account, as indicated on the documents you have presented. So please correct. Senators, there will be no disruption in the I am speaking while the presiding officer speaks. The rest will remain silent. I am saying, for the record, it must indicate that the minister indicated that 200,000 may be deposited in the minister's account, not in his account. So please retract and correct the statement, Senator.
Madam President, perhaps the member was a little bit too hasty, because right after I said this, I said the minister's account. So this is the account to which I refer. It would be irresponsible of me, Madam President, irresponsible of me to suggest that it was a personal account. So I said his account, I said so, but right after I said the minister's account. If play the recording and we will hear it. Madam President, this was an account. This was an account that the minister utilized as if it were it were his personal piggy bank. As if it were his
Madam
personal
President, on a point of order.
How do you know the minister?
Madam President.
Senator, what is your point of order?
The point of order is the senator has presented two documents. And in these documents, Madam President, if these documents do not show that any of the funds that were in that account went to any personal activities of the minister at the time, I am asking that she withdraws that statement.
Senator Polius, again, I need to advise you that you are treading very, very dangerously. Please withdraw that statement with the evidence to show that the minister had any personal or whatever engagements other than what is on paper. I'd ask you to please withdraw that statement.
Madam President, I am guided by your direction. I'm guided by that. But I also want to say I'm measured in the words that I use. I said as if it were, as if.
Senator,
what is,
Senator,
we all understand language,
Senator,
don't we?
Senator Polius, you indicating that the account was used by the minister as if it was his own piggyback, whatever terminology you use is suggestive. Please retract. I will not allow this in this house. We have to be more responsible in our utterances.
Thank you, Madam President. I do accept and I will move on.
I said to withdraw, Senator Polius.
Madam President, if this is the interpretation that is being conveyed, I withdraw. But this is not what I meant to convey. That is why I used as if. Anyway, I continue. I will continue. Madam President, we ask, it is really about the issue of accountability. Who is providing the oversight? The 80 million that is being guaranteed. Who is providing the oversight? And how can we allow such a situation to go unchecked? How can we continue to allow such a situation like this to go unchecked? After all, Madam President, the people of this country the taxpayers of this country deserve transparency and accountability in how their hard-earned money is utilized. We owe it to them, Madam President. We owe it to them to ensure that every dollar allocated for youth and sports development is spent wisely and for its intended purpose. Madam President, I strongly oppose any attempt to circumvent or to bypass regulations. Any attempt. We know that governance is characterized by transparency. That's good governance, by the way. Good governance is characterized by transparency and accountability. Without these two fundamental principles, Madam President, trust in our government wanes. Trust in our government goes out the window. Corruption thrives, and the very fabric of our democracy is jeopardized. Madam President, it is against this background, Madam President, that while I support the intention of this resolution, the intention, I am extremely worried. I'm quite apprehensive, Madam President, about the manner in which these funds will be disbursed and spent. I thank you.